Today, we become legends.
So I've just finished watching the Patch Notes show. It's actually kind of still going on, but I wanted to get this video done as quickly as possible because I'm sure you all want to see what Cthulhu's like. He looks like one of the coolest gods we've seen in a long time. I mean, not technically a god really, but they're going to class him as a god anyway. Obviously, a character that a lot of people have wanted for a long time. It's sort of fan service, but also sort of something that I think the Smite design team really did want to work on. And it really shows. There seems to be a lot of passion with this god, a lot of work that's gone into it, and honestly, the way he's turned out looks really cool. So let's just jump straight into his abilities, because I'm sure that's what you all want to see. So firstly, his passive is a stacking debuff on enemy gods that'll stack up to 4 times. You get stacks of this from hitting any of your abilities. Some abilities give multiple stacks of this, some can give up to 2, some just give 1. And then also the final hit of your basic attack chain. Essentially, Cthulhu's attack chain is 1-1, and then the final hit is AoE. So any hits of that AoE chain right at the end will apply stacks of Torment. And he also has extra range on his basic attacks as well, I believe. I think standard melee basic attacks are 12, and he has 16 and then 20 on his range. So he has slightly longer range auto attacks. But once you reach 4 stacks of Torment, you get afflicted by Insanity, which essentially causes visual and auditorial hallucinations on your screen. So you'll be seeing eyes and tentacles popping up from the map and things like that. It looks really cool. And also, apparently they mentioned something like they'll be using abilities and relic sounds and things like that, so you'll be hearing blinks, you'll be hearing Loki going stealth, even if they're not in your game, and it can kind of mess with you a lot when you're trying to play, so that's really cool. It really fits the theme of Cthulhu really well, just having to fight this god is driving you completely mad. And also, any gods that are currently insane, and the buff lasts a long time, it's 20 seconds duration for the Insanity, So yeah, the buff does last a very long time, and you get 25 magical power per enemy god that is insane that's near you. So a 20 second duration, 25 power, that's quite a lot of extra damage you're getting just for hitting people and making them insane. So Cthulhu's first ability, Cthulhu sends out a terrifying blast of energy, dealing damage to all enemies hit and reducing attack speed. Enemies hit by this ability also do reduce damage to Cthulhu for 6 seconds. This ability applies 1 stack of Torment, or 2 if you hit the enemy while they're facing you. And also if the enemy is inflicted with Insanity from your passive, so if you've reached those 4 stacks of Torment and they're currently insane, it'll also fear them. Also, if you do successfully consume that Insanity and fear them away, it will permanently increase the damage mitigation of the ability by 1%, and this stacks up to 20 times. So the base mitigation of this ability is 20% for 6 seconds, but if you hit 20 insane gods and fear them away, which I assume is reasonably feasible, especially in a conquest game, you can get up to 40% damage mitigation from this, which could be pretty insane considering it's 6 seconds. That could make you really tanky, especially in solo, maybe you level this first, but even if you don't level this first, you can still get that damage mitigation because it doesn't scale up, it's just a flat value. So if you're playing in solo, constantly hitting someone with this, because it is only a 10-second cooldown and the debuff lasts 6 seconds, if you've got enough CDR, you could probably permanently have up to 40% damage mitigation from the enemy solo, which seems incredibly strong to me. His second ability is one of his coolest ones, I think, especially in the way it looks and the way it I can't say the way it feels because I haven't tried it yet, but the way it seems to feel in-game, from how I've seen them using it on the patch notes. So Cthulhu summons a portal, creating a slow field of Eldritch Mire at the target location. While Cthulhu channels, the Mire continues to grow as the portal fires out 2 masses of corruption that hit and damage all enemies in the field. The first shot slows enemies additionally, and the second shot roots them. Both hits apply 1 stack of Torment, so you get 2 stacks total if you hit both shots of this ability. And you can cancel the ability early, which stops the Mire from growing or the portal from firing additional shots. So essentially, this ability starts out as a reasonably large AoE, very small slow, it's only 10% at the start. But then after, I don't really know how long it would be, it seems to be maybe half a second or 1 second of channeling, you get one of these meteors, which massively increases the slow to 35%, so really, if you connect the first hit of this ability, they're going to be slowed so much that you'll probably connect the second hit, which you then get the root. Like I said, you can also cancel this ability at any time if, for some reason you might want to, cancel it to use a different ability because you need to do it at that time. And also, there's no CC immunity at all on this ability, no knock-up immunity or CC immunity in general, so you can quite easily be interrupted from casting this. Cthulhu's third ability, Cthulhu creates twisting projectiles at his side as he unfurls his wings and charges forward, damaging, stunning, and knocking away enemies hit. The projectiles at his sides follow a slightly slower pace but travel further, damaging enemies as well. Enemies hit by the middle Cthulhu dash or the projectiles gain 1 stack of Torment. So once again, this will stack the passive. This is a really unique targeter actually. It's sort of like two longer lines on the side and then like a shorter one in the middle that they don't overlap, but they're right next to each other, so you can't really miss with this. But obviously, you do want to hit that middle one if you can, with like the Cthulhu charge, because that's going to stun and knock enemies away. So I imagine this will also work like Dragon Strike from Hercules, where you can interrupt knock-up immune abilities because it stuns first and then knocks them away. So you could interrupt things like Arthur's 3B and things like that with this, I would assume. And finally, but not finally, because his ultimate gives him access to 3 different abilities, we have Cthulhu's ult. Cthulhu reveals his true form as he plunges the battlefield into R'lyeh, if I'm pronouncing that right, while any enemies caught nearby are damaged. In this form, Cthulhu gains access to new abilities, like I said. Enemies near Cthulhu gain stacks of Torment passively if they're facing him, and enemies also suffer the debuff effects of Insanity Break, causing them to deal less damage to Cthulhu. So the damage on this is pretty decent. I mean, it's pretty regular Guardian ult damage, probably a little bit lower than Guardian ults, but obviously the damage on this isn't really what you're looking for, it's getting access to those extra abilities. The duration is 12 up to 16 seconds, so not as long as Fafnir ult. I'm pretty sure Fafnir ult is significantly longer than this, especially once you rank it up. But it's sort of similar to a Fafnir ult, where you get like limited time access to some very powerful abilities. It also increases Cthulhu's max health by 30%, so this is definitely the new tankiest god in the game when he ults. Ymir had the highest base health, but a 30% increase, that's just on max health in general, not base health, so you could probably easily hit the health cap with this guy, I think, of 5,500. You get massive damage mitigation, like, while you're kind of growing big, so you can't just, like, because you won't be able to do anything while you're growing big, so it makes sense that you get big damage mitigation. But honestly, when you're in this ultimate, you're not, like, damage immune or anything, but like, it's not like a Jormungandr ult where you kind of like can't be targeted, but you're going to be very tanky. Like, you're going to have 30% increased max health, and you're also going to have 20 up to 40% damage mitigation from the one that's constantly applying. So honestly, if you're taking 40% less damage and you have 30% more max health, you're going to be extremely hard to kill in this ultimate. So when you do ult, you get access to these 3 other abilities. The first one, Cthulhu swipes the ground beneath him, creating 3 large projectiles. These projectiles damage enemies and apply a stacking protection reduction debuff. This ability does not proc item effects. So this ability costs no mana and has a 1-second cooldown. So this is essentially intended to be used almost like a basic attack, because I'm pretty sure when he's huge, he can't actually basic attack, but you don't need to basic attack when you have a 1-second cooldown ability that costs no mana. You can just spam this over and over again. And honestly, the damage is pretty crazy on this ability. Like, it doesn't reduce. Like, maybe if you hit someone, if you hit them again, it's like 20% reduced damage or something. That would make sense, but honestly, I think a 1-second cooldown ability doing this much damage is going to be insanely strong. Like, even when the ultimate is limited time, like, you only get 16 seconds of it tops, so really maximum, even with CDI, you're probably only going to get about 20 of these off, but 20 times 350 damage is still a lot, so we'll see how powerful this will be. You also reduce enemy protections 3%, stacking up to 5 times for 15% total, so essentially, I think Voidstone is 15%. Voidstone might be 20, I think it's 15 though, so you essentially get a Voidstone or a Void Shield, like percent reduction type thing. And this ability is pretty huge and very spammable, so you're going to be able to apply that very easily to probably multiple people. This is like his bread and butter when he's ulting. Like, your other abilities have very low cooldowns as well, but you're going to be essentially spamming one on your keyboard or whatever it is on controller to just like spam this ability over and over, because the damage is crazy and the protection reduction is good as well. His second ability in the ult form is Devastate. Cthulhu fires a devastating blast of psychic energy that damages and knocks up enemies. So the base damage on this, once again, is fairly high. The cooldown's fairly low as well, but obviously not as low as the one. But, 5 seconds, if you have some CDR, that's going to go as low as like 3.6 or something, if my mental math is correct on that. So you're going to be able to knock people up a lot, and knockups aren't affected by diminishing returns, so you're going to be CCing people a lot with this ability. But once again, the ult is very limited time, 16 seconds, so even with full CDR, you're probably only going to be casting this 3 or 4 times per ult. This knocks straight up, so you can basically think of this as like a mobile Cuchulainn ultimate, which sounds kind of crazy considering it's on a 3.6 second cooldown. Like, the CC is going to be nutty, but it is essentially about the same AoE. It might be slightly smaller, I think, than a Cuchulainn ultimate, but yeah, it's basically a ranged Cuchulainn ultimate that you can cast every 3.6 seconds with cooldown, so that's going to be pretty crazy, even though the damage is obviously a lot less. So those 2 abilities are pretty simple, but his 3 in the ult form is actually a little more complicated. Cthulhu transfuses his own life force into the area around him, giving allies health, movement speed, and power. Enemies are also hit, taking more damage the closer they are to Cthulhu when he casts it, and this ability damages Cthulhu for 6% of his maximum health, which is pretty significant. That's a lot higher than what like Thanatos damages himself, for instance, and Cthulhu doesn't have built-in sustain. If Cthulhu is below 20% health, this ability doesn't damage you, but the ally effects are halved. This is just so you don't accidentally kill yourself, I assume. So the damage is kind of low, but you're not really looking for damage with this. And much like a lot of these abilities in the ult form, and yeah, a lot of his abilities in general, none of them really scale too high. Some of them can hit multiple times, but like the highest scaling we're seeing here is like 50% on the ult, 40% on some of the abilities. These are all like 20%, 20%, 30%, so I think maybe my thoughts here is that they had issues with him just being played as a mage in PTS, so they nerfed his scalings very heavily. Or not in PTS, sorry, in internal testing. Because, honestly, if these had, like, normal Guardian scalings of maybe 50%, I imagine he could just be played as a mage. So, yeah, I think that's probably why these scaling values are so low, but his base damages are very good, so you can probably just build tanky / bruiser with a bit of pen and do a lot of damage with this guy. So yeah, sorry for that tangent, but this ability will heal 10% up to 14% of your ally's max health, which the AoE for this ability is huge. Like, if you're in a team fight, you're almost certainly going to be hitting every single ally. Like, I'm not even joking, I think the AoE of this ability might be the largest AoE we've seen in the entire game. It's actually enormous, so realistically, you're going to be hitting your entire team, or maybe, like, not the solo or jungle if they're diving the backline, but in general, you're going to be hitting most of your team with this ability when you do use it. You also get 40 power, so more used to physicals and magicals, but in general, still pretty good, and also 20% movement speed. The cooldowns on them, this is also pretty low, like a lot of his abilities. With CDR, you're getting this down to, like, 4 seconds roughly, something like that. But obviously you don't want to be spamming this too much because you're doing 6% of your health every time you use it, so you don't want to just be like killing yourself with this ability, but the healing seems really strong and then the power and movement speed are nice too. But yeah, that's all Cthulhu's abilities and just like a quick overview of how he works, as well as some info from the patch notes and like gameplay of how the abilities work in game and stuff like that, because they do look really cool. Honestly, I'm very surprised at how cool this god looks. Like, I was thinking he was probably going to be pretty cool, but this honestly looks like, to me, probably the most fun god we've seen since, like, Merlin Arthur releases. Like, obviously, you can argue Arthur and Merlin were broken as fuck and weren't very fun, but I think, in terms of kit design, they're very good. And this is honestly rivaling them, potentially even better, but we'll see how it plays in-game. Let me know how excited you are for Cthulhu in the comments, and maybe some theory crafting on where you think he's going to be played, which abilities you think are going to be very strong, maybe need nerfs, or maybe even some buffs, but honestly, looking at this kit, I'm not sure he's going to need buffs. But yeah, let me know all that down below, and we'll start a discussion, and I'll catch you guys in another video next time. Have a great day, stay safe, and peace out, you nerds.